Hi, everyone. Welcome to the live stream, which turned out to not be a live stream because we had so many technical difficulties, but this is the world that we live in. I am Suzanne Weller, and my co-coach and co-facilitator for this program and this conversation today is Jason Leuenberger. So, Jason, you want to say a quick hello?
Hello, everyone. It's good to see you all. I'm happy to be here through all of this.
Thank you for being here, everyone. Yeah, Megan, thank you for joining us late. I apologize for that mess. We're going to record this and then share this out to people after the fact. But this is such a wonderful opportunity for us to come together and to do to have a conversation about leadership beyond your walls. And as everybody on this call, with the exception of you, Kristen, was basically in this past year's cohort. And Jason is my new co-coach for this year. Stacey Harris, who is the co-coach for this past cohort, she is not able to join today due to an urgent issue that she had to deal with. But this is really a conversation about looking outside of the walls of our organizations, of our networks in general, to see who are the people that we might need to have some perspective from and support, the people that we don't necessarily know that we need in our worlds, but we definitely do need them in our worlds. So, how do we actually have this conversation today around the power of community and what we're able to build as a result of it? And as we go through this, it's really a conversation to talk about what we did this past year through the mastermind that we put together, the Outsight Leadership Mastermind. So Jenna and Kelsey and Molly and Megan, who are all here, were members of that cohort. So we're gonna do some Q&A around their experience and just talk about what you can get from the power of a peer community. And then at the end of the call, Jason and I will share some information on the 2026 cohort if you're interested in learning more. And if you have questions throughout, go ahead and put them in the chat as we go through. So, any other questions before I dive in? Jason, did you want to add anything?
No, that sounds good. Let's just jump right in.
Okay. So I want to start with a question, and I'm going to put this out to our cohort group. So, what were the things that surprised you about this program? I mean, we ran from January through September, a 9-month program. I'm
Mhm.
curious, what were the things that you got out of this that you didn't necessarily expect?
I would say genuine connection to the people in the cohort. I think I expected to connect professionally. I came to really care for all of the people involved across the whole spectrum. Um, and that was to me an added bonus. Definitely. Like I expected great people to be involved because Suzanne is someone I hold in high esteem, but I was really delighted by the other people I was able to meet through this. So it meant a lot in that way, which was totally unexpected to me.
I would echo that sentiment, Jenna, but maybe add that I did hope that there would be a strong personal connection to each of our sort of journeys and what we were working on. But by the time we came together in person in May, there was just such a deep connection that I think the intensity and the interest that we had in each other and supporting each other was the coming together in person just really benefited greatly from the connection we'd already made over the previous months online.
Yeah, and Suzanne, you mentioned how lengthy the course was, but it was like it felt like it flew by too. And at the
Mm.
end, we all couldn't believe that it was our last session. So it just echoes what everybody said, that like level of trust and community that was built throughout.
Love that. Megan, did you want to add anything?
I think it was, I guess, an unexpected consequence or impact was like how much confidence I felt after being a part of the group. You know, it's different from, I'm part of other esteemed groups, I'd say, and it was like the ability to build a connection and have trust and then learn together and then also hear these other, really impactful, intelligent, leaders were having the same kind of feelings and thoughts and challenges that I was having, just did so much to build my confidence and let me let go of a lot of stuff and actually do work.
Hmm.
I'm curious, what questions did you bring to the group that you felt that you couldn't bring to your organization, or maybe, just your current group? What were the things that you felt like you were able to open up about in a safe and trusted way?
Well, I'll jump in, Suzanne. I came, of course, as a little bit of from a different angle. I'm an independent consultant. I've been doing consulting for about 8 years, and really
Hmm.
had sort of that, need to get together with a group and really sort out some of my direction. I was looking to resolve some, the interface of my personal sort of obligations and business, and wanting to really look at a different approach to how I was blending those two things, and really understanding what my sort of next 5 years was going to look like. I do 6 months at a time, so sometimes a little longer, horizon is a little bit daunting to me. And having a group that I could bounce ideas off of, that I knew were also trying to figure out sort of what their strategic goals were for both their business and their lives, really was the main reason that I came to the group, and it exceeded every expectation I had.
Mm, I love hearing that.
Hmm. So nice.
Anyone else want to chime in from the group?
Yeah, I can add. I think for me, it wasn't so much that I was able to bring things that I couldn't bring at work. For me, what I really got was perspective. I work for Google. I've been there for 10 years. It sometimes can feel like a bit of an echo chamber. So the value of connecting with respected, high powered, brilliant people from other industries who I wouldn't really have met through the traditional networking work streams or things like that. That for me was really, really valuable. Just getting a completely fresh set of ears, hearing, understanding, and again, also reflecting to Megan's point, just getting that edification, being able to talk to people who aren't in my day to day and wouldn't be.
So deep, right? Like because you have to, in networking, you're like, oh, you do this, and you can sort of scratch the surface. But when you're with people, you're like, okay, I get it. You're at a large corporation or you're in a small organization. And so the politics or the dynamic is, how do you get that at a really deep level? You can ask people on the surface, but there's so much that we're building on. We're talking about, it's like, we're building skills together. We're talking about energy management and all of these things. And then it's like, oh, and then how does it show up? So it's holding the space together, and you're like, how does this show up in your organization? And oh yeah, and oh that. And so like it's all resonating, and it's just, there's so much more power in doing it with peers like that, that also are not invested in your exact organization or team.
Any other comments before we go on to the next question, cohort members? All right, Jason, I'm going to punt it to you.
Okay. Thinking about those that you were able to connect with and get the perspective from,
Mhm.
was there anything that you learned from someone else that resonated a little more deeply that you practice now, or you held on to, that you had learned from someone else?
I mean, Molly just mentioned it, but that 6 month look, it never dawned on me to really do like a check in with yourself. If it's, are you doing what you wanted to do? Or what's next up for you? Like, are you holding yourself accountable in a way that, like, outside of work? And so I had never really thought to do that for myself in that space. And so that's one thing that, when she, again, like every time you hear it, you're like, it's so simple. Why didn't I think of doing that? But when you see other people living it and doing it, and like the benefits that it brings, it was like wildly helpful.
Anyone
Without sort
else?
of naming names, one of the things that resonated for me with several of my cohort was how much they were really sort of, navigating within their organization, sort of both their personal and their professional growth, and looking at the needs of their team and really being very thoughtful about how they were navigating their own personal journey and how it would reflect on those that they worked with. And it really impressed me that that sort of much larger thinking and that more cohesive thinking about where they fit, not only for their personal goals and ambitions, but how it would move their organizations and their teams forward. I really appreciated learning a lot about that dynamic from folks.
Mm. One thing that also stands out for me from the experience was when we brought in Dr. Julie Pham, who's one of our guest speakers, and she talked about her book and her framework, The Seven Forms of Respect. And when all of you did the quiz, like it's a quiz and it talks about how you give and receive respect from people. And I think that the majority of the group, it was our top way that we give and receive respect was punctuality. So it was around the expectation
Yes.
that we will be on time and that we expect other people to be on time. I remember that being a big eye opener for a lot of you. Would some of you be willing to speak to that?
Oh my God, yes. This one changed my life. And a number of people that I have reshared that resource with is probably like at least 20. And I know I told the cohort, but for me, I've worked for the same boss for 10 years. Punctuality is my number one form of showing respect. It would probably be her zero. She cares zero about that. And if I had this 7 forms of respect thing 10 years ago, I could have saved so much interpersonal strife and misperception. I think not just that particular session being so amazing. I want to call out the combination of really inspiring, very practical, accessible, and useful tools that Suzanne and Stacy offered to us was really beautifully combined with all the other human stuff we've been talking about. And I think that is some secret sauce that I don't see a lot in other similar types of programs, but the 7 forms of respect. I mean, honestly, every human should read that.
Just to yes, and that, Jenna, I think it was like doing that exercise and like learning what your triggers are and like learning like why am I so mad that they didn't email me back? Like, what are and understanding that it's not the same. Like, we all know these things, but having the reminder and just like discussing it all together. And then also how that ties into our values work that we did at the beginning and like thinking about holding the space to have the values, the stated values be our guide, right? And then knowing that, again, we're going to revisit that in 6 months or a year. Like our values can shift, our priorities can shift, but knowing what is important to us, like some people do not value punctuality, right? And so how do we reconcile that, right? Like how do we, it's like knowing and having the awareness is a big part of the battle. So I agree with what was said. That exercise in particular was really great for self-awareness, and that these things really built on the other work that we're doing. And it's just the constant, gentle reminders that we're learning and revisiting these tools all the time.
I also remember that conversation too with Kelsey. You had given some advice with it too.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Was it about the reply all email? Because while in my personal life, I think I have more, like, you got to be on time. It's the Langston way. It just is. You are on time. But at work, it shows up a little bit differently because I understand that everybody's busy, right? So I don't even think of it as a form of like respect or not. But when we were talking about the email specifically, like I don't ever want to burden people with another email. So what I do is I thank them in advance as opposed to replying and saying the thank you. Because what I was saying is like the reply all thank you is actually more burdensome to me because I feel like it adds more work. And so we had a really good conversation around that, I think, with Jenna, you and I. And it's just sort of like, oh no, save your thank you. I don't need it. I do it up front. And I'm just like, thank you in advance for all your support. So, yeah.
Love that. Thank you. I also know when we came together for our retreat, so we did it in May, and based on everybody's feedback for the next cohort, we're pushing it up to March because we want to do it sooner. That was what most of you had asked for, just as far as in your feedback on the mastermind. I'm curious for all of you how that changed you. I know Molly, you in particular, because you were really looking, you were making some plans on your business and changing around. Would you be willing to speak to that a bit?
Sure. As I mentioned, I was really at the point where I wanted to make a change. I had some intentionality around it, but it felt very like, where do I start and how do I prioritize and what are the pieces that I need to look at? And, in our, sort of sharing sessions as I went through and used the guidelines that you provided for us to prep for the day, I felt like, I sort of put a lot out there on the table for everyone to react to. And the thing that came back was so much clarity and so much reflecting not only what I said, but, folks who had gotten to know me already well enough, giving me like really solid advice and really solid, questions to think about. And it really did sort of create not only the pivot that I was looking for, but really cleared up for me some of the things that were, maybe like even dragging me down a little bit. And, I could think more about the the things that rose to the top that you all helped me really sort of, clear the decks, clean away the chaff, really hone in on the pieces that were most important. And, it was complemented so well by our in-person sessions with you and Stacy, Suzanne, to kind of bring those pieces from the in-person session that I had with my cohort, with my peers, into our conversations, that it really just set the tone for the rest of the adventure for me to really, just crystallize exactly what my go forward strategy was. And I'm now 3 months into it, so it's going really well.
That's great. Thank you, Molly. Jason, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I was thinking just now about the connections that you all created together, and you formed a tight bond. I was wondering if at any point um, it felt good to challenge each other a little bit from with an external perspective versus maybe something that you had held on to for a long time because of having an internal perspective or maybe not having an additional perspective. Any thoughts on a challenge from someone else?
I think that the it was a combination of the group and also the tools that we used. Sort of
Mm.
there were rules of engagement for that challenge, and obviously building the trust helped and going through some learnings together. But there were a couple of things like the clarity committee, and the hot seat exercise where you are sharing and there are rules of engagement, right? Like there's but you get these brains, these like really, intelligent, curious, thoughtful, reflective minds that are invested in your problem. And that is a feeling that you can't get in other, you know what I mean? Like it was just so, I didn't realize how big that was to be able to go through that exercise. So I think having the format, having the foundation and support from Suzanne and Stacy to go through those exercises, and I want to replicate them in some way with, either with this group again sometime or with my own sort of personal board of directors. But I think the structure around those challenges is, we started with trust, we had rules of engagement, and then just getting that reward, that immediate impact from going through that is like, wow, I want to do that again.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think it was Megan hit on it. The way that Suzanne and Stacey structured the engagement, I think we all felt really safe. And all of the hot seat and clarity committee, I technically was challenging, but it was never contentious and it never felt threatening or unsafe or anything like that. And I think Suzanne and Stacey were incredibly intentional in how they set the stage. And that was critical, for me, and feeling like it was maximally beneficial with no kind of fear component.
Mm.
Yeah, because if
We
you
questioned each other.
imagine questioning someone on their work or their leadership or all of these things that you don't maybe have not known for that long, it can feel very vulnerable. But I didn't have that experience. It was really rewarding.
Felt effortless because we were all questioning each other to understand and really like help and support, and as opposed to like critique, right? So it was very effortless in that way. So I don't think it felt challenging, but you just walked away with so much insight about yourself and how others might perceive the questions or the topic that you brought, that it was just like every time we did it.
Totally. And I think it's partially because we didn't have personal stakes beyond wanting to support each other. And we also know and like each other, but not know each other well enough where our personal relationships would then influence what we were saying. It's a weird sweet spot of like respect and camaraderie and, just safe space to kind of crunch on stuff. It's unique. I haven't experienced a similar subset in my life.
It's great to hear.
I'm also curious with all of you, what's one skill that maybe you took away from this? And like in the context of now, as you look at you now as leaders and looking forward into 2026, what is one thing that is important for you now? And what did this program help you to hone?
There
I
were so
think
many tools that were provided for us. So it's like when I was thinking about this, it was like, is it a skill or is it just that I just have more to draw from now and like different language a little bit than what I previously had? And so, I mean, obviously the clarity community and the 7 forms of respect, but it like how you take that forward and then share that gift almost and bring that into the rest of like your organization or your personal life. So maybe it's a skill, but I thought of it in a way as like I feel like I got more in my toolbox to attack it.
Yeah, I was definitely going to say that the practical tools for sure. I think more broadly, I came to the cohort just because I needed an anchor outside of work. I felt really lost in swirl. For me, it gave me stability or the capacity to hold myself stable within the swirl and feel calmer, much more anchored, much more confident. I know Megan mentioned confident, yes, but also calm. Like enough of the things that we shared calmed a lot of the external fears I was having. And I just feel steadier on my feet after.
Mm.
I think specifically for a skill, I'd say decision making, because that was, an area of opportunity. I think once you get a certain set of decisions, like you work on, okay, how can I be more informed and intentional about my decision making and efficient if necessary. But the values work and a lot of these other tools, the clarity committee, all of these things really have informed my decision making in all areas of my life, I'd say. And I think just having, again, the confidence in myself to make a decision that, I'm using the best information that I have at the time. And so I'm going to offer myself self-compassion if it turns out not to be the right one or perfect or whatever. And so the decision making has a lot of components to it, but I think that that's been really huge. And it's something that I'm still practicing.
Mm. Love that.
I also just I thought about the networking one that we did because I just got home from San Diego yesterday for a conference and I was getting ready to go to that and thinking about all the networking and going, oh. But then I remembered the conversation that we had and I looked back through my notes and like all of our different perspectives and relationships to networking. And I remember writing down some really good nuggets from everybody in the group. And after doing that, I realized like it energized me in a way that I wasn't expecting as I went back and I reflected on that. And then reframed for myself like this is an opportunity and like approached it maybe a little bit differently than I have in the past. And so that was one that I just recently did literally 2 days ago. That just popped in my head as well. That was a good one.
Love it. Thank you. I see Pierre's question in the chat. Curious to know how your self-concept as a leader expanded or shifted as you went through the program. Anybody want to field that? Just a light question.
That one a little bit. I am an individual contributor in my role at a high level, but I don't manage a team. And Google is a relatively flat org, so I sometimes just feel like I'm just doing my work and I've got my network. I was initially very intimidated by being in the same cohort as women like Kelsey, who manages a massive team. It really helped me to kind of put aside the circumstance of my particular role and the structure of my team as some sort of blocker to me considering myself like an executive level leader. Once I got comfortable in the room, I was like, yeah, these are my peers. It really helped me adjust in a way that like I can't get that at work because it's not going to change. It really had to come from that validation, right, from others, from other places. By the end, I was like, oh, I fit in. It's okay. And I didn't have that at all. I was really, really intimidated at first. So for me, it was really helpful to get that base, that gut check with others.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think every session where we walked away, I think one of the bigger words when we were doing the checkout, you just felt validated in a way in relation to your work and your life. And so I think that was one of the bigger things that I took away as well, that you know, we're all just trying to do it. We're all trying to do a thing, right? And so it was just validating in that, like, oh, maybe my instincts are correct. Oh, like maybe I'm not as far off as I thought, regardless of the team size that I lead and how I'm approaching, you know, this area. So.
Any other questions from people in the room? Like Jason, Denny, Pierre, Kristen, Doug, Kristen?
I have one. I didn't know if this is going to be more related to kind of as you talk about what's next, but how did you? I've been contemplating a mastermind for a while, and the ones that I have heard of are people kind of that are in the same, and this could be right or wrong. This is really, I'm really kind of naive about these things, candidly, but like, how do you pull the group together? I had a thought that they would be kind of in similar spaces in their career or what they were doing, but not directly competitive with each other. Maybe that's just the one that I heard of. But I guess, how do you curate the individuals so that it's meaningful? It appears this is a mix of people and different kinds of roles and responsibilities, and I heard scale and whatnot. So I'm kind of rambling, but does that make sense?
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts on it. Jason, did you want to field that before I share some ideas?
Oh, no, please. Yeah.
So it's interesting because we talked about doing it originally with specific industries in mind or specific levels or otherwise. But I do feel like ultimately that can be limiting because sometimes the most unexpected advice that and perspective that I've received in my career have been from people that I never expected to receive it from. So it was really to open it up to make sure that we were just preventing any sort of echo chamber. And we were also concerned too, like, you know, Molly was the one entrepreneur of the group, right? Like the one sole business owner that wasn't in a larger corporation. And that was one of the things that we were really mindful about. But I think Molly can tell you she got a great experience from being in a different place. And so did everybody else from getting her perspective on how she manages her business. So I think that openness allows for things that we don't necessarily know that we need. And for the application process, I mean, it is an application process because we want people to come that are intentional and that are respectful of other people and that will be willing to hold space for each other too. So it's, you know, we did have one person that we weren't able to invite into last year's cohort because she worked for the same organization as somebody that was already in the cohort. And we wanted to make sure that we were preserving, you know, that anonymity and that confidentiality. But for us, it was really about, you know, making sure that it's the best experience where it's not competitive. We do have everybody sign confidentiality agreements for this. You know, like if we feel that there's a conflict of interest, we set those business rules just to make sure that everybody is comfortable and that we don't get into that uncomfortable and potentially awkward space. So I hope that answers your question, Kristen.
Thanks. It does.
Okay, great.
Just add to that, Suzanne,
Yeah.
that I think in a space like this, you know, the more diversity of thought and experience, I think the richer and more creative like these sessions can be. And that's, and not to say you could be in the same industry in similar roles and there can be still be diversity of thought. But I think, there's common, like what we learned about each other is like there's so much overlap in like the challenges that we're having, and it's agnostic. It's like irregardless of industry or role, right? It's like the same challenges that we're grappling with. And it's useful to be able to apply a little bit of distance and perspective to try to solution your own challenge.
Love that. Any other questions from the group? Just going to stare at everybody. Okay. Well, we will share some information on the 2026 program. Jason can share a little bit more of that in detail. But I'd just be curious from the four members of the previous cohort, one word that captures your experience and why peer learning and support has been so vital to you this year, or two words.
I'm going to say I was challenged by the 1 and 2 words, Suzanne.
I'll give you two words.
Um, hmm. Well, I was going to mention that one of the unexpected pleasures is now, I mentioned in the chat that Megan and I have now run into each other in real life. And oh my gosh, what an absolute pleasure that was to, connect and, just have these really rich conversations. It's like having this great relationship with somebody who, you can just cut right through and you can start talking very, very deeply and very meaningfully instantly. So I guess maybe my 2 words would be deep connection.
Thank you, Molly.
I will say gratifying and grounding.
Thank you.
I will say valuable and reflective.
Oh, Kelsey, took my words. Yes to all of those, and clarifying and energizing.
Good ones.
Love it. Well, thanks to all of you for being here, for sharing your experience. So
thank you.
Yeah, it was such a joy to do this with all of you for 9 months. So thank you.
It was a joy to see everybody today. I miss these.
Yeah,
I know.
Thanks
It
for
is
asking.
nice to see everyone.
Love it. All right, so let's shift to talking about next year then. Jason, you wanna give us an overview?
Yeah, next year. So as it was alluded to, we're going to continue with the 9-month program. It's going to start in January. It's going to run until September. There's going to be monthly group coaching sessions together. We've outlined a draft of the dates for each month. Those are posted on the website at oimastermind.com. Those dates are flexible. We're gonna adjust if we need to, but those are the ones that we've come up with so far. There's also the date for the full day in-person event here in the Seattle area. That's also been posted as part of that schedule. That's going to happen in March based on the feedback from last year's cohort. So that's moving up to March. And then we also have one-on-one coaching. So personal one-on-one coaching for each participant. And you get to choose between Suzanne or me, whatever you'd like to do, and work with us individually. And we'll get to know you much better on a personal level. So that's part of the experience as well. And then Suzanne also alluded to the fact that we're going to have 2 guest speakers. Those will be announced a little later. I don't think we have those set just yet, but we're going to have 2 guest speakers join us as well. And obviously, there's the connection in between all the sessions too, to stay connected with each other and resources shared in between sessions as well. So we've got a lot planned for everyone in 2026.
Yeah, we do. And the deadline for applications is December 5th. So, and if you are interested, if you know others that are interested, or if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. But I'm incredibly honored that we built this experience this year, and that we're going to be able to continue to do it. I'm really fortunate that I get to do it with Jason next year. So thank you for that. And all of you for being here and rolling with the technology punches today. Oy vey.
Duck and weave, duck and weave.
Yes. I appreciate all of you, as does Jason. So,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, I can stick around for a few more minutes if you have questions. But thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate all of you. Be well. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Great to
Thank
see
you.
you.
See you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Doug, questions? You good? All right. I think we're good.
Doug's gone. Okay.
All right. So let's close out and then see you and
Okay.
I connect. Cool.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.